Chapter 18, Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, the Yoga of Liberation and Renunciation. After guiding Arjuna through discipline, devotion, meditation, and faith, Krishna now brings the entire teaching to its grand conclusion. Here, Arjuna seeks clarity on a final question. What is true renunciation, sannyasa, and what is true freedom, moksha? Krishna will now weave together the wisdom of all previous chapters, karma, jnana, dhyana, and bhakti, into one complete vision. He shows how duty can be performed without bondage, how renunciation does not mean abandoning action, and how surrender to the Supreme leads to ultimate liberation. If the Gita is a lamp, chapter 18 is its brilliant flame. It is here that Krishna gives his last and most powerful words to Arjuna. Act without fear, surrender with love, and attain freedom eternal. In verse 1, Arjuna asks with humility, O Krishna, I wish to understand the true meaning of renunciation, sannyasa, and relinquishment, tyaga, and how they differ. This is a profound question, because many confuse renunciation with abandonment. Arjuna wants clarity. Is giving up action the same as renunciation, or is there a deeper truth? In verse 2, Krishna begins his answer. The sages understand sannyasa as renunciation of works with desire, while the wise declare tyaga to be the renunciation of the fruits of all action. Here Krishna makes a clear distinction. Sannyasa means giving up selfish, desire-driven acts. Tyaga means giving up attachment to the results, even while performing one's duties. Psychology explains, the problem is not action itself, but clinging to results that fuel stress and ego. Neuroscience shows, anticipation of reward activates craving circuits, but detachment calms the brain into balance. Logic illustrates, the farmer must sow seeds, but he cannot control the rain. Effort is his, the result is not. In verse 3, Krishna notes, some thinkers say that all action should be given up as evil, while others declare that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. Here Krishna reflects the age-old debate. Some reject life and duties as binding, others insist noble actions are necessary. Psychology calls this the tension between avoidance and responsibility. Neuroscience reveals, withdrawing completely may bring short-term quiet, but long-term well-being comes from meaningful engagement. Logic proves, a lamp may burn with smoke, but without the lamp, there is no light at all. In verse 4, Krishna clarifies, now hear from me the truth about renunciation, O best of the Bharatas, for renunciation has been described in threefold ways. Thus, Krishna sets the stage. Renunciation is not one-dimensional, but has layers of meaning, depending on motive and clarity. In verse 5, he gives his verdict. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. Indeed, they purify even the wise. Here, Krishna affirms, noble actions must continue. True renunciation is not escape, but transformation. Psychology calls this sublimation, redirecting energy toward higher purposes. Neuroscience shows that altruism and discipline activate pathways of long-term well-being. Logic explains, the tree must shed its withered leaves, but it must never stop giving fruit. Thus Krishna begins chapter 18 by clearing confusion. Renunciation is not abandoning life, but abandoning selfishness. Duty, done with purity, becomes the path to liberation. In verse 6, Krishna makes the teaching crystal clear. But even these acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance must be performed without attachment and expectation of reward. This, O Arjuna, is my supreme and best opinion. Here Krishna shows us the balance. Don't abandon good works. Instead, perform them with detachment. Psychology calls this intrinsic motivation, acting because it is right, not for reward. Neuroscience observes that such detachment reduces stress, calming the reward-craving circuits of the brain. Logic proves, the sun shines not for praise, but because it is its nature to give light. In verse 7, Krishna warns, renunciation of prescribed duty is not proper. To abandon duty out of delusion is declared to be tamasic. This is important. Abandoning responsibility because of laziness, fear, or ignorance is not spirituality. It is darkness. Psychology calls this avoidance behavior, escaping challenges instead of growing through them. Neuroscience shows that avoidance strengthens fear patterns in the brain. Logic says, refusing to row does not stop the boat. It only leaves you adrift. In verse 8, he continues, when one abandons duty because it is difficult or brings discomfort, such renunciation is rajasic. It leads not to true benefit. Renouncing out of fear of pain or desire for comfort is still selfish. Psychology calls this short-term coping that sacrifices long-term growth. Neuroscience shows that pain avoidance limits resilience pathways in the brain. Logic explains, the student who quits because study is hard never gains wisdom. In verse 9, Krishna reveals the highest path. When duty is performed simply because it ought to be done, without attachment, such renunciation is sattvic, pure, and wise. This is the essence of Dharma, action for its own sake, without ego. Psychology calls this self-determination, alignment with one's values. Neuroscience shows this state produces flow and harmony in the brain. Logic proves, The tree gives shade even to the woodcutter who strikes it. In verses 10 to 11, he adds, the renunciate who is free from doubt and attachment, who neither hates unpleasant work nor clings to pleasant work, is truly wise. For it is impossible for an embodied being to completely abandon all action, but one who renounces the fruits of action is truly renunciate. Here Krishna resolves the paradox. You cannot stop acting. Life itself is action. What you can give up is attachment. Psychology sees this as cognitive balance, not swinging between attraction and aversion. Neuroscience confirms that mindfulness reduces emotional reactivity, allowing calm focus. Logic clarifies, the river cannot stop flowing, but it can flow without clinging to its banks. In verse 12, Krishna concludes this section. For those who are not renunciates, actions bring three kinds of results after death: desirable, undesirable, and mixed. But for the renunciate who surrenders attachment, no such fruits bind him. This is liberation. Action continues, but karma does not bind. Psychology calls this transcendence of reward-punishment conditioning. Neuroscience explains that non-attachment breaks the cycle of craving and fear. Logic illustrates, the lotus blooms in the water, but water never clings to its petals. Thus Krishna reveals the threefold renunciation: tamasic, abandoning out of ignorance; rajasic, abandoning out of fear or discomfort; sattvic, acting without attachment, for the sake of Dharma. And he shows, true freedom comes not by giving up action, but by giving up the bondage of its results. In verse 13, Krishna reveals, learn from me, O mighty armed Arjuna, the 5 factors declared by the sages for the accomplishment of all action. Krishna now dissects action into its building blocks, showing us that no deed is born from ego alone. In verse 14, he lists them: the body, the field where action takes place; the doer, the individual agent of action; the instruments, senses, and faculties used in action; the effort, the energy applied; the divine will, the unseen factor that harmonizes all. These 5 together complete any action. Psychology interprets this as the interplay of environment, self, tools, effort, and circumstances. Neuroscience calls it the integration of body, brain, senses, and external conditions. Logic says, no seed becomes a tree without soil, water, sun, and time. In verse 15, Krishna emphasizes, whatever action a man performs with his body, speech, or mind, whether right or wrong, these 5 are its causes. This shatters the illusion of absolute doership. Ego may claim I alone did this, but reality shows many forces at play. Psychology points out that outcomes are co-created by personal effort and external factors. Neuroscience shows how environment, genes, and neural networks shape behavior. Logic proves, no sailor can command the sea. He can only adjust his sails. In verse 16, Krishna warns he who, because of untrained understanding, sees the self as the sole doer, he does not perceive rightly. The delusion of I am the only cause blinds us to truth. Psychology calls this ego-centered bias. Neuroscience shows how the brain often overcredits the self while ignoring hidden influences. Logic teaches, the actor shines on stage, but without script, lights, and audience, the play cannot exist. In verse 17, Krishna reveals freedom. He who is free from ego, whose understanding is clear, though he slays these people, he slays not, nor is he bound. When ego dissolves, action is no longer binding. This is not permission for violence. It is a teaching that when action flows purely as Dharma without ego or hatred, karma does not cling. Psychology calls this egoless action, serving higher purpose rather than personal pride. Neuroscience finds parallels in flow states, where action happens seamlessly, without self-centered thought. Logic shows, the flute makes no music unless the wind flows through it, yet the flute claims nothing. In verse 18, Krishna sums up knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower. These 3 are the impulse to action, the instrument, the act, and the doer. These 3 constitute the basis of action. Here Krishna weaves together 2 triads, the knowledge triad, knower, known, knowledge; the action triad, doer, deed, instrument. Together, they form the complete cycle of all human activity. Psychology frames this as cognition, knowing, and execution, acting. Neuroscience recognizes perception, decision, and behavior as interconnected processes. Logic affirms, thought, word, and deed are 3 steps of the same journey. Thus, Krishna shows Arjuna that action is never the result of ego alone. It is the harmony of body, mind, instruments, effort, and divine will. Recognizing this truth dissolves pride, softens blame, and frees the soul from bondage. In verse 19, Krishna begins by saying, knowledge, action, and the doer are declared to be of 3 kinds. According to the 3 gunas qualities in nature, he now classifies human experience into sattva, purity; clarity, rajas, restless passion; and tamas, darkness, ignorance. Reminder for the audience, the 3 gunas are the fundamental qualities of nature that shape personality, behavior, and thought. Sattva equals clarity, wisdom, balance. Rajas equals desire, ambition, restlessness. Tamas equals ignorance, inertia, confusion. The threefold knowledge, verse 2, O sattvic knowledge, that knowledge by which one sees one imperishable reality in all beings, undivided in the divided, know that as sattvic psychology, the ability to see unity amidst diversity, seeing common humanity. Neuroscience, perception of interconnectedness creates empathy and reduces stress. Logic, one sun lights countless rooms, yet remains the same. Verse 21, Rajosic knowledge, but the knowledge which sees multiplicity of beings as separate and divided, know that, as Rajosic psychology, focus on difference and competition leads to division. Neuroscience, bias in perception, amplifies us versus them. Logic, mistaking waves as separate from the ocean. Verse 22, tamasic knowledge, the knowledge clinging to one little thing, as if it were the whole, without reason, without truth. That is tamasic psychology, narrow, rigid thinking. Neuroscience, tunnel vision and distorted cognition. Logic, holding a lamp under a basket and calling it the sun. The threefold action, verse 23, sattvic action, action that is done without attachment, without desire for reward, performed as duty. That is sattvic psychology. Altruistic behavior. Neuroscience, intrinsic motivation creates long-term fulfillment. Logic, the tree bears fruit, not for itself, but for all. Verse 24, Rajosic action, action done with great effort, seeking pleasure, or aiming at selfish gain. That is psychology, driven by ambition, but often stressful. Neuroscience, dopamine chasing, leading to burnout. Logic, running endlessly, after shadows. Verse 5, tamasic action, action undertaken through delusion, without regard to consequences, loss, injury, or one's capacity. That is tamasic psychology, reckless or self-destructive behavior. Neuroscience, impaired judgment from ignorance or intoxication. Logic, sowing seeds on rocks and expecting harvest. The threefold doer, verse 26, the sattvic doer, free from attachment, free from ego, firm and enthusiastic, unaffected by success or failure. Such a doer is sattvic psychology. The resilient, humble worker. Neuroscience, balanced brain chemistry, low stress response. Logic, the river flows steadily, whether praised or ignored. Verse 27, the Rajasic doer attached to results, greedy, harmful, impure, full of joy and sorrow. Such a doer is Rajasic psychology, the achiever who rises and falls with outcomes. Neuroscience, dopamine highs and cortisol crashes. Logic, a candle flickering in the wind. Verse 28, the tamasic doer, undisciplined, vulgar, stubborn, deceitful, lazy, malicious, procrastinating. Such a doer is tamasic psychology, the self-saboteur, trapped in apathy. Neuroscience, lack of motivation, circuits engaged, often linked with depression. Logic, a cart without wheels, refusing to move. With these verses, Krishna gives Arjuna a mirror to self-reflect. Our knowledge, actions, and even the way we act are all colored by the gunas. By recognizing this, one can rise beyond rajas and tamas and live in sattva, the doorway to liberation. In verse 29, Krishna declares, Arjuna, understanding buddhi and firmness dirty are also of three kinds, according to the gunas that dominate them. Thus, not only knowledge, action, and the doer, but even our intellect and willpower are shaped by sattva, rajas, and tamas. Reminder for the audience, buddhi equals the power of discrimination, the inner compass of right and wrong. Dorti equals determination or steadiness that holds us to our chosen path. The threefold intellect buddhi, verse 30, sattvic intellect, that which knows what should be done and what should not be done, what is to be feared and what is not, what binds and what frees. Such an intellect is sattvic psychology, clear moral reasoning, discerning right from wrong. Neuroscience, prefrontal cortex in balance, guiding ethical decision-making. Logic, a compass that always points north. Verse 31, Rajasic intellect, the intellect which confuses dharma and adharma, right and wrong. That intellect is Rajasic psychology, rationalizing selfish desires, bending morality for gain. Neuroscience, bias and cognitive distortion, cloud judgment. Logic, mistaking a mirage for water. Verse 32, tamasic intellect, the intellect which enveloped in darkness sees wrong as right, and all things pervertedly. That intellect is tamasic psychology, delusion, corruption of conscience. Neuroscience, impaired cognition, destructive habits, overriding clarity. Logic, calling poison nectar. The threefold firmness, dirty. Verse 33, sattvic firmness, that firmness by which one holds steadfastly to yoga, to concentration, to control of mind, breath, and senses. That is sattvic psychology, self-discipline, and resilience. Neuroscience, long-term consistency strengthens neural pathways. Logic, a mountain unmoved by storm. Verse 34, Rajasic firmness, but that firmness by which one clings to duty, pleasure, and wealth out of attachment and desire. That is Rajasic psychology. Willpower tied to ego and ambition. Neuroscience. Reward-seeking circuits dominate perseverance. Logic, a tethered horse pulling only toward grass. Verse 35. Tamasic firmness. That firmness by which a dull person does not give up sleep. Fear, grief, depression, and arrogance. That is tamasic psychology. Stagnation, refusal to grow. Neuroscience, neural rigidity, stuck in negative loops. Logic, a wheel stuck deep in mud, spinning but going nowhere. Here Krishna shows that intellect and will, the two guiding powers of human life, are themselves colored by the guna. True freedom comes when they are purified into sattva, pointing us toward clarity, discipline, and liberation. In verse 36, Krishna introduces another profound teaching. Now hear from me about the three kinds of happiness. O best of the Bharatas, that in which one delights, and by which one comes to the end of sorrow. So even sukha, happiness itself, is shaped by sattva, rajas, and tamas. The threefold happiness sukha, verse 37, sattvic happiness, that which at first seems like poison but in the end is like nectar, born of the serenity of the self. That happiness is sattvic psychology. Discipline may feel hard at first, but leads to long-term well-being. Neuroscience. Delayed gratification rewires the brain for resilience and peace. Logic, bitter medicine heals and brings health. Verse 38. Rajasic happiness, that which is born of the contact of senses with their objects, like nectar at first but poison in the end. That happiness is rajasic psychology. Indulgence brings instant pleasure but lasting dissatisfaction. Neuroscience. Dopamine spikes lead to crashes and dependency. Logic, sugar rush, sweet now, sickness later. Verse 39. Tamasic happiness, that which deludes from beginning to end, arising from sleep, laziness, and negligence. That happiness is tamasic psychology. Numbness, mistaken for peace, but actually decay. Neuroscience. Inactivity weakens the brain and body, reinforcing sloth. Logic, stagnant water breeds disease, not refreshment. The four varna duties, svadharma, in verse 40, Krishna explains. No being, whether on earth or even among the gods, is free from the three gunas born of nature. Thus, our duties, svadharma, our roles in society, are shaped by the gunas in our nature. Verses 41 to 44. The four varna duties, brahmanas the wise, teachers, priests, qualities of serenity, self-control, purity, patience, knowledge, and faith. Kshatriyas, warriors, leaders, valor, strength, courage, firmness, generosity, and leadership. Vaishyas, merchants, farmers, agriculture, trade, and business. Shudras workers, servants, service, and support through physical labor. Important reminder, these divisions are based on guna nature and karma tendency, not birth or caste. Krishna emphasizes inner qualities, not social hierarchy. Psychology. People flourish when their work aligns with their strengths. Neuroscience. Brain wiring supports natural inclinations. Logic. A wheel runs smooth when each spoke plays its part. Krishna here unites happiness and duty. True happiness lies not in fleeting pleasures but in living one's dharma, guided by sattva, aligned with the eternal self. In verse 45, Krishna declares, by performing their own duties, born of their nature, humans attain perfection. Hear how this happens. Here Krishna teaches that perfection is not about escaping life's duties, but sanctifying them, the power of svadharma, one's own duty. Verse 46. By worshipping him from whom all beings arise and by whom all this is pervaded, a person attains perfection through performing his own duty. Psychology. Fulfillment comes when daily work is connected to higher purpose. Neuroscience. Meaning-driven action activates motivation circuits more deeply than reward-driven action. Logic. A river flows strongest when it follows its natural course. Verse 47. It is better to do one's own duty, even if done imperfectly, than to do another's duty perfectly. By doing one's own duty, one does not incur sin. Psychology. Authenticity brings peace. Imitation breeds anxiety. Neuroscience. Forcing unnatural patterns creates stress and burnout. Logic. A mango tree cannot produce apples, nor should it try. Verse 48. One should not abandon one's duty, even if it is difficult. O Arjuna. For all undertakings are surrounded by imperfection, just as fire is enveloped by smoke. Psychology. Life's challenges do not discredit purpose. Growth comes through struggle. Neuroscience. Resilience builds new neural pathways through facing difficulty. Logic. Gold is purified only in fire, not outside it. Verse 49. One who is detached in all work, whose mind is free and who is self-controlled, attains the supreme perfection of renunciation by renouncing the fruits of action. Here Krishna connects karma, yoga, and sannyasa. The true renunciate is not one who abandons duties, but one who abandons clinging to results. Psychology. Freedom from outcome reduces anxiety and enhances well-being. Neuroscience. Mindfulness detaches reaction from result, building inner calm. Logic. The archer releases the arrow, Whether it hits the target is not in his control. Thus, Krishna teaches, the path to liberation is not escape, but dedication. By living one's nature with devotion and detachment, the imperfect becomes perfect. Verse 50, learn from me briefly, O Arjuna, how one who has attained perfection reaches Brahman, the highest state of knowledge. Here, Krishna bridges duty and liberation. When one performs Svadharma, one's duty with purity and detachment, it ripens into realization of Brahman, the eternal truth. Psychology, purpose-driven living expands into neuroscience, repeated alignment of thoughts and actions builds deep neural integration, preparing the brain for higher states of awareness. Logic, the seed, once nourished, naturally grows into a tree. Duty matures into wisdom. In verse 51 to 53, by purified intellect, by control of mind, by renunciation of sound and other sense objects, by freedom from attachment, by solitude, moderation in speech, body, and mind, constant meditation, and detachment from possessions, the yogi becomes fit for realization of Brahman. This is the roadmap. Discipline of body, clarity of mind, moderation in lifestyle, and deep meditation. Psychology, detachment from excess leads to mental health and clarity. Neuroscience, sensory withdrawal reduces overstimulation, allowing deeper brain states to emerge. Logic, a lamp burns steady in a windless place. So to the mind without distraction. Verse 54, having realized Brahman, the soul attains supreme serenity, does not lament or desire, sees all beings equally, and attains pure devotion to me. This is the fruit of realization, equanimity, love, and devotion. Knowledge of Brahman does not end in cold detachment, it blossoms into bhakti, devotion to Krishna. Psychology, fulfillment is not just freedom from suffering, but overflowing compassion. Neuroscience, states of transcendence activate networks of joy, empathy, and unity. Logic, when the river merges with the ocean, it does not lose itself, it becomes vast. Verse 55, through devotion, one truly knows me in essence. Then, having known me in truth, the devotee enters into me. Here Krishna reveals the crown jewel. Knowledge culminates in devotion, and devotion leads to union. Psychology, head and heart unite in ultimate wholeness. Neuroscience, devotion integrates rational and emotional circuits, producing harmony and inner peace. Logic, knowing the sun's light is not enough, one must feel its warmth. Thus Krishna shows that the path of Dharma matures into the path of devotion. Discipline, knowledge, and detachment all converge in bhakti, which alone grants union with the Supreme. Verse 56 though, engaged in all kinds of actions, one who takes refuge in me alone, by my grace attains the eternal, imperishable abode. Krishna here removes all fear. Worldly duties do not block liberation if done in surrender to him. Psychology, refuge in a higher purpose, dissolves anxiety and conflict. Neuroscience, devotion, stabilizes stress circuits, making even busy life a ground for peace. Logic, the boat floats safely, not because the waves stop, but because it is guided to shore. Verse 57, dedicate all your actions to me, with your mind fixed on the self, free from hope and selfishness. Fight without agitation. This is karma yoga crowned with devotion. Action without ego. Psychology, purpose-centered action prevents burnout. Neuroscience, flow states emerge when ego subsides and focus is absorbed. Logic, the hand works, but the credit belongs to the whole body. Verse 58, if you become conscious of me, you will overcome all obstacles by my grace. But if, out of ego, you do not listen, you will perish. Krishna warns against arrogance. Ego closes the channel of grace. Psychology, pride blinds, cutting off growth. Neuroscience, stress escalates when the brain insists on control instead of trust. Logic, a closed vessel cannot receive water, no matter how much is poured. Verse 59, if filled with ego, you say, I will not fight, your resolve is in vain. Your nature will compel you. This verse unmasks the illusion of control. One cannot escape Dharma. Psychology, suppressed duty returns as inner conflict. Neuroscience, repressed impulses resurface in behavior. Logic, a river may be dammed, but eventually it will break through. Verse 60, O Arjuna, bound by your own duty born of nature, what you wish not to do, you will do even against your will. Krishna shows that Dharma is inherent, one cannot abandon the essence of their being. Psychology, personality, traits, shape behavior beyond mere choice. Neuroscience, genetic and neurowiring set tendencies that will play out. Logic, a seed of mango cannot bear apples, no matter how much it resists. Verse 61, the Lord dwells in the hearts of all beings, O Arjuna, directing the wanderings of all as if mounted on a machine by his power. Here Krishna reveals his immanence. He is the inner guide. Psychology, intuition, and conscience arise from the deeper self. Neuroscience, hidden processes in the brain guide decisions unconsciously. Logic, the puppets move, but only by the hand of the unseen puppeteer. Verse 60, to take refuge in him alone, O Arjuna. By his grace, you will attain supreme peace and the eternal abode. This is Krishna's assurance. Surrender is the gateway to liberation. Psychology, surrender removes inner resistance, bringing peace. Neuroscience, trust and devotion, lower fear circuits, and create resilience. Logic. The safest place for a child is in the embrace of the mother. Thus, Krishna teaches, action, ego, and even destiny are all transcended by surrender. By grace, the soul is lifted beyond bondage into eternal peace. Verse 63, thus I have explained to you this knowledge, more secret than all secrets. Reflect fully on it, and then do as you wish. Krishna gives freedom. Even after revealing the highest truth, he does not force Arjuna. Psychology. True guidance empowers choice, not control. Neuroscience. Learning becomes wisdom only when integrated by free will. Logic. The teacher shows the path, but the student must walk. Verse 64. Hear again my supreme word, the most secret of all. You are dear to me. Therefore, I speak this for your benefit. This verse is deeply intimate. Krishna speaks not as a distant god, but as a loving friend. Psychology. Love opens the heart to accept truth. Neuroscience. Compassion releases bonding hormones, making wisdom stick. Logic. The medicine heals more when given with care. Verse 65. Fix your mind on me. Be devoted to me. Worship me. Bow to me. You shall come to me alone. Truly I promise you, for you are dear to me. This is the essence of Bhakti Yoga. Krishna assures personal love and return to him. Psychology, focus, and devotion bring emotional stability. Neuroscience, repetition of devotion reshapes the brain into calm and joy. Logic, the magnet pulls iron not by command, but by attraction. Verse 66. The crown jewel, abandon all varieties of Dharma and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sins. Do not fear. This is the heart of the Gita, the final and highest teaching. All duties, roles, confusions, and burdens find resolution in surrender to the Supreme. Psychology. Surrender removes inner fragmentation, uniting the self. Neuroscience. Trust and faith deactivate fear circuits, creating profound peace. Logic. When the river merges with the ocean, all struggles of its course are over. Here Krishna reveals the ultimate secret. Liberation is not by effort alone, but by surrendering completely to his love and grace. Verse 67. This teaching should never be spoken to one who is without austerity, without devotion, without service, or to one who does not want to listen. Psychology. Wisdom is effective only when the mind is prepared. Neuroscience. A closed mind resists new neural pathways. Openness is the soil for change. Logic. Seeds sown on barren ground cannot sprout. Verse 60. But he who speaks this supreme secret to my devotees, with supreme devotion to me, shall surely come to me. Here Krishna honors the teacher of truth. To share the Gita with love is itself a path to liberation. Psychology, teaching strengthens the teacher's own conviction. Neuroscience, teaching rewires memory, making learning deeper and lasting. Logic, the lamp that lights another does not lose its own flame. Verse 69. No one among men is more dear to me than he, nor shall there ever be one dearer than he. This is Krishna's special blessing. For those who spread the Gita, it shows that passing on wisdom is the highest service to humanity. Verse 70. And he who studies this sacred dialogue of ours, I consider that he worships me with the sacrifice of knowledge. Psychology. Reflection keeps the teachings alive in consciousness. Neuroscience. Regular study strengthens neural connections, creating lasting transformation. Logic, returning to the well deepens the freshness of water. Verse 71. Even the one who listens with faith and without envy, he too shall attain the worlds of the righteous and the blessed. Not only the teacher, but also the humble listener is uplifted. Psychology, receptivity itself begins inner change. Neuroscience, attentive listening creates positive emotional circuits. Logic, even being near a fire gives warmth. Verse 72. O son of Pritha, has this been heard with attention by you? Has your delusion caused by ignorance been destroyed? At this moment, Krishna brings Arjuna back to reflection. Have you truly understood? Has your confusion cleared? This is not just Krishna asking Arjuna, this is Krishna asking us, the listeners of the Gita. Verse 73. Arjuna speaks, my delusion is destroyed. Memory has been restored by your grace. O Krishna, I am firm, free from doubt, and I shall act according to your word. Psychology. Arjuna shows the shift from confusion, gives clarity, gives commitment. Neuroscience. Clarity comes when conflicting neural signals resolve into coherence. Logic. Once the destination is seen, hesitation disappears. Verses 74 to 75. Sanjaya the narrator speaks. Thus, I heard this wonderful dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. By the grace of Vyasa, I heard this supreme secret, directly from the Lord of Yoga, Krishna himself. Here Sanjaya becomes emotional, expressing gratitude. It reminds us that the Gita is not just dialogue, but divine revelation. In verse 76 to 77, O King, as I recall again and again this most holy dialogue, I rejoice again and again. And as I remember again and again that most wonderful form of Krishna, I am filled with great joy. Psychology, reliving wisdom strengthens emotional resilience. Neuroscience, repeated contemplation deepens neural imprints. Logic, tasting nectar again and again, only increases delight. Verse 7-8, the final verse of the Gita. Wherever there is Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, and Arjuna, the wielder of the bow, there surely will be splendor, victory, prosperity, and firm morality. This is my conviction. This is the eternal conclusion, where divine wisdom, Krishna, meets human effort, Arjuna. There lies success. Spirituality and action together create a life of victory and fulfillment. Thus ends chapter 18, Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, the yoga of liberation and renunciation, and with it, the Bhagavad Gita. The journey that began with Arjuna's despair ends with clarity, strength, and surrender. The message is timeless. Align with wisdom, act with devotion, surrender the fruits, and victory is assured, both in life and in spirit. Life at its core is a battlefield, not of Kurukshetra, but within our own minds. We fight against fear, against stress, against the chains of anxiety. We cling to people, to possessions, to outcomes, forgetting that nothing here is permanent. Attachments bring joy, yes, but they also bring pain, because everything we hold eventually slips away. The Gita reminds us, don't stop acting, but stop expecting. Act with full heart, with full strength, with full dedication. But release the fruit. When you do your duty without demand, no failure can break you, and no success can intoxicate you. Stress dissolves, because you no longer carry the burden of control. Anxiety fades, because the future no longer enslaves you. And truth shines, because you stand in harmony with the eternal. This is Krishna's final gift. To live in the world, yet not be consumed by it. To love, yet not be broken by loss. To act, yet not be bound by outcome. To walk through impermanence, holding only the eternal. The Gita closes not with despair, but with strength. It tells us wherever there is wisdom and effort, Krishna and Arjuna, there is victory, peace, and light. So when stress crushes you, when expectations burn you, when attachments pull you apart, remember, you are Arjuna, Krishna is within you, and together, nothing can defeat you.